Philadelphia Eagles fan, and they'll tell you the Birds just won the Super Bowl. The only problem is that it's April. Game 6 between the Grizz and the Timberwolves, and the return of sucker bets. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Friday, and welcome to another edition of Bet. She's Anita Marks. I'm Joe Fortenbaugh. Tyler Fulgham having a colonoscopy today. He's unable to join us. That may or may not be false, but I'll leave it to you to decide. Fresh off the craps table, how you doing?
Yeah, let's not go there. When you're stumbling to your hotel room at midnight, don't stop off at the craps table. Just don't do it. Don't do it.
Or do it, but win. Sounds easy. Vegas claims another one. YouTube.com/ESPN Sports Betting. Anita, myself, and the rest of the crew rolling out bet after bet after bet to get you set for the weekend and everything in between. Now, we got a lot to talk about in regards to basketball, but we start with the big story of the day. That would be the National Football League and the 2022 draft, which took place right here in Las Vegas, almost 300 to 400 yards from where we are sitting.
I couldn't tell.
We drank our way through it last night. We had a wonderful time. But it's time to get down to business. And the first question is based on everything you saw that happened yesterday, Anita. From the trades to the lack of QBs to the abundance of wide receivers, are there any futures bets to win the Super Bowl, to win the conference MVP that you saw from yesterday's action that made you want to get down?
You said it when we opened up the show, and that is the Eagles have already won the Super Bowl.
Don't tease me.
I'm not.
Don't tease me.
I'm not going there just yet, but I will play them to win the NFC East. That's for sure. And you can get that at plus 250 for a number of reasons. Man, they get A.J. Brown, and you now add A.J. Brown to Devontae Smith and Goddard along with Hurts. Top 5 offensive line. And maybe I've buried the lead here. No, it's A.J. Brown. I haven't buried the lead. But now they get Davis. I spoke to a number of scouts who felt that Davis was their favorite player in this draft. Nose tackle, just a complete beast. I had a scout tell me they called him an uncommon human. He's going to put centers on their behind, and now you line him up next to Fletcher Cox, who's going to be able to run on this team. Nobody, Joe, nobody. So I'm all over the Eagles. I like them to win the division, again, at plus 250.
The Philadelphia Eagles essentially drafted a cruise ship to play defensive tackle alongside another cruise ship. So whether or not Royal Caribbean, Carnival, or anyone else wants to sponsor that defensive line next year, the marketing opportunities are there.
The Eagles need to hire you.
It'd be tough to run against them.
In their sales department.
I tried to get hired by the Eagles. They went with someone else. It's a long story ending in dejectment and tears for me. But my big takeaway plays right into what you were talking about. That is the Indianapolis Colts to win the AFC South at plus 105. I can't believe it's plus money. This is a two-horse race like it's been for several years. Houston's in a rebuild, so is Jacksonville. But the key to Indianapolis isn't anything Indianapolis did yesterday. It's what Tennessee did. They took one of their most potent offensive weapons in A.J. Brown, and they traded him to Philadelphia. Now, they used that pick to draft a rookie wide receiver out of Arkansas who can play. But can he play to the level of A.J. Brown? I don't think so, not in year one. In addition, Derrick Henry only played 8 games last year. He's starting to break down. Julio Jones has been breaking down. Last year, that was a terrible season for Julio. Essentially, what I'm telling you is this. I think the Titans are starting the process of a rebuild without telling you they're starting the process of a rebuild. Ryan Tannehill might be on his way out. Right now, you can get Indianapolis at plus 105. I'm betting by the time the season starts, that price is no longer there. They're going to be your odds-on favorite. Question number 2. As we enter day 2 of the NFL draft, any bets you're looking to make this afternoon and evening?
Yeah, let's start with Sam Howell. I know I've been talking about him for a week now. He's my boy. He's this year's, or should I say last year's Mac Jones. Not as good as Mac Jones, but I do like him to go tonight. I feel, in my opinion, best quarterback in this draft. Look at Logan Howell. I like the over at 33.5. Why? I'm hearing that the Vikings might take him or should take him, are expected to take him at 34. 6'6", 283, ran a 4.9, smart athlete, and a great pass rusher. And then Christian Watson, I'm going to go under 42.5. Why? There's still a chance that Seattle trades DK Metcalf. If they do, they bring in a wide receiver from North Dakota State, 6'4", Julio Jones metrics, and also could be utilized in the slot, very similar to how the 49ers utilize Deebo Samuel.
Okay, very nice. And like usual, Anita gets a full graphic. No one else on this show or any show at ESPN gets treated like that. I mean, literally. It's incredible. I'm going to do a little sampling. I'm going to make my own prop bet for you today. Here's what we're going to do. The Chicago Bears are going to be on the clock for the first time at pick number 39. They have a lot of needs. Wide receiver's the favorite. I don't see him doing it. offensive line, defensive line. Look at the two odds. In order to go offensive line, plus 350. If they go D-line, it's 5-1. So put the same amount of money on each bet. And essentially what you're getting is a prop that pays plus 158, right? $100 to win 158, essentially, because you got to lose one of those wagers. Now, obviously, the whole thing could blow up in our face if neither of those two positions goes, but I think there's a great opportunity for this to happen. Number one, the new general manager, Ryan Poles in Chicago, has been talking all offseason about how they need to build up the offensive line and build up the defensive line. You got to protect Justin Fields, and you got to get after opposing quarterbacks. The problem is that they struck out in free agency in every regard on the offensive line and defensive line. This pick, while the city might want a wide receiver, needs to be in the trenches. O-line, D-line, you combine them together, it's plus 158. Thank me tomorrow. If it misses, I'm on vacation. Stay out of the DMs. I got nothing to say to you. We'll regroup. We'll come back together on Monday. Question number 3. Only one quarterback, Kenny Pickett of the Pittsburgh Panthers, went in the first round, number 20 overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It feels like the Steelers might be the most predictable team in the NFL. Last year was Najee Harris. Everyone saw that. This year, everyone saw QB. Were you surprised how it unfolded for the quarterback class?
I was surprised that Pickett was the first quarterback selected. I thought Willis would be. But I'm not surprised that he went to the Steelers because that's what was being reported, and I anticipated that. I thought Willis would go before Pickett. Listen, small hands, and you're playing in the AFC North, good luck. I ran into Louis Riddick last night at dinner, and him and I were arguing about it. Louis loves this pick and loves Pickett. I don't. So in that regard, listen, we were telling people on Daily Wager, take the under of 3.5 quarterbacks being selected in the first round, and that hit. So hopefully we help people win some money.
A lot of words were said there. All I heard was, I was at dinner with Louis. I waited in line at In-N-Out Burger, and then I left because it was going to take too long, and I was starving, so I went home and ate leftovers. Dinner with Louis Riddick. How?
I didn't have dinner.
Did he wear
I
the
said
salmon suit?
I ran into Louis Riddick at dinner. I ran in. He was on his way to his table. That's what happened. We were arguing about Pickett. Small hands.
Yeah.
AFC North. No bueno. No bueno.
Very quickly for me, I'm glad this played out. I saw it happening like this. When it's a weak quarterback class, it's okay to acknowledge it. We don't have to fit a square peg into a round hole, okay? It's a bad quarterback class. They all slid. Desmond Ridder went over 30.5. Every over is hitting for all these guys, and now we move into day 2. This is when you go after these guys. Remember, first round pick is a franchise guy. None of these guys were franchise guys. They weren't. Your career is going to be staked on this guy's performance. Too much risk. Understand. Let's transition to the National Basketball Association, where we got a doozy of a matchup tonight at Target Center in Minnesota as the Timberwolves get set to host the Grizzlies in Game 6. So we go out to Target Center. Kevin Arnovitz, kind enough to join us to talk about the series. Kevin, we appreciate the time and all the work you've been putting in. Let's start with this. In this series against Memphis, Minnesota has recorded more blown double-digit leads than they have victories. That, if you're not aware, is not really a good thing when you're playing playoff basketball. Figured I'd give you a little tip there. What has the team said about their inability to close out these games?
Coach Chris Finch was very clear. There were 3 things that have plagued them. The first is offensive rebounding. Memphis got 43% of their missed shots in the fourth quarter. That's astounding. You know what else is astounding? Fouling. 11 personal fouls in the fourth quarter the other night. And then he said it's more abstract, but he said, look, we're just stagnant. And you want to break it down, there are 11 ISOs, isolation plays, in the fourth quarter. They got 4 points total in 11 possessions. ISOing, not good.
All right, so the last game in regard to, we saw the Timberwolves, they scored just 38 points in the paint compared to the Grizzlies scoring 62. So how do they plan to have those numbers not be so polar opposite?
I think it starts with Anthony Edwards, because when he gets downhill, that explosive first step, going to his left, he finishes at the basket. And I think too often he kind of settles. He becomes a 1 or 2 dribble guy, face-up jumper, mid-range. Not an efficient shot for him. They're going to keep shooting threes. It's a recipe that works. They were 5th in the regular season in attempts, 4th in percentage. They had the #1 offense after New Year's, so they're happy to have those threes. I think it's converting a lot of those mid-range shots to the rim.
Ja Morant has been an absolute beast late in games. He scored 18 of his 30 Game 5 points in the fourth quarter of that matchup. You were on the scene. What did Morant say changed for him in that fourth quarter?
You know, Morant's funny in this way. He's a little Tim Duncan-ish. He takes any praise that comes to him and deflects it to his teammates. He won't even entertain the notion that things were different in the fourth. You know, it was different. You know, my teammates fouled me. They set good screens. I mean, this is sort of his attitude. I think it's one of the reasons he's popular, both among teammates and fans, is you just can't get him to be revealing or introspective about his personal play. It's always about the team.
All right, well, I'm not going to ask you a spread question. Let's just go straight up. Who do you have winning tonight? I mean, I've really enjoyed this series. I want to see a Game 7. Just straight up, who's going to win?
I have Memphis by a hair. I just think they're ready to move on. They haven't played well yet. I mean, other than Game 2, they just really haven't. It has not been an efficient offense. You know, defensively, they've been fine, but I think they're ready to break out. I think they're ready to put this to bed.
Kevin Arnovitz on the scene from Target Center, kind enough to join us here on Bet. Kevin, thank you so much. Good luck. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks.
As per usual, I don't know why I wish reporters good luck. I always say good luck as if they're about to play in the game, but also one of the best sounding voices in all of basketball. Love talking to Kevin Arnovitz. Always smooth and sultry. Let's pick the game ourselves. The NBA playoff pick'em begins with tonight's Game 6 in Minnesota. Memphis laying 1.5, total of 229.5. How do you see it?
Yeah, I like the T-Wolves here. Give me the points.
Here we go.
Now, this series, especially the last two games, they've been close. I mean, these dudes are battling it out. And maybe I'm betting with my heart here more than my head because, again, like I said, I want to see a Game 7. I've enjoyed this series thoroughly. Towns, last two games, double-double. He's playing exceptionally well. Keep in mind, Steven Adams, I know he's not averaging a lot of minutes, but now that he's out because of COVID protocol, not sure as we get closer to game time, Joe, that maybe there'll be some other players out there that might not be able to suit up. This is also a team, Memphis Grizzlies, they have to stay out of foul trouble, you know, especially going up against Towns in the paint. And last but not least, I think the two keys to the game for Minnesota tonight, number one is offensive rebounding. Can't give Memphis those second chances.
Yes.
And also, and we just talked about it, got to close it out in the fourth quarter. You got to bring it home tonight. And I think if they do that, Minnesota wins.
Few people know this. Anita and I go way back. We've known each other for a while. She used to have me on a radio show all the time when she couldn't find literally any other guest to book. I was the bottom of the barrel. It is true. But for some reason, we have been at odds every single day since you have been here when it comes to NBA games. Night one, you got me. Night two, I got you. So now here we go, third round. I'm going to play the Memphis Grizzlies in this one. This comes down to pricing for me. The two games in Minnesota prior to this one were -2 and -2.5, the Grizzlies laying the points. It was a split in that series. So now up 3-2 coming back for Game 6. You're only laying 1.5. I think you're getting a discounted price from a Memphis team who, listen to this, in Game 5 against Minnesota, Minnesota was 3 percentage points better from the field. They were 17 percentage points better from three-point range, and they were 21 percentage points better from the free throw line. And they lost the game. How can you beat them in every one of those categories and lose the game? I know they're coming home. I think it's the same thing we saw with Phoenix. You're coming home, you think you're going to even it up. No, road team's going to get the job done, close out the series. I'm going with the Grizz. So we're head-to-head on that one. Let's see how we fare on Sunday as the second round gets underway with the Boston Celtics laying 4.5, total of 217.5. It's been coming down a bit. They're going to host Giannis and the Bucks. What do you see here?
You know how much I love this Boston Celtics team. I've been all over them. And they were able to sweep the Nets. So what does that mean? They're coming in rested. Also, they have Robert Williams, which is huge for them on the defensive side of the ball. Meanwhile, for the Bucks, no Middleton. Apparently, it's a strain, a grade 2 strain on his MCL. So not only are they not going to have him tonight, they're not going to have him in the series. Who's going to defend Tatum, who's just been an absolute beast, averaging 30 points a game, along with Jaylen Brown, along with Marcus Smart. We talk about Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year, right? Like, doing such great things on the defensive side, but he's averaging 20 points a game as well. So I'm all over this Celtics team. I picked the Heat to represent the East prior to the season. Remember, I had the Heat and the Golden State Warriors. I'm leaning towards Boston. I think the Boston Celtics are the best team in the postseason right now.
I hope you are right. Played them at 50-1 a couple months ago. It would be very nice to have an opportunity to cash that ticket. Just bragging a little. Just bragging a little bit. When it blows up in my face, we'll revisit this clip. I'm sure it'll be all over YouTube. I am going to go to the total on this one. I kind of want to lay the 4.5. I also want to see how these two match up in game one. There's a lot to try to figure out here. I'm going to go under 217.5. These two teams faced almost no defensive resistance whatsoever in the last round. They were able to do whatever they wanted. Milwaukee was shooting 38% from deep. The Celtics were shooting 49% from the floor. But they're not facing the Bulls and the Nets this time around. They're facing each other. And both these teams can play defense, especially Boston, who concluded the season #1 in the NBA in defensive rating. Now, keep something in mind. The injury to Chris Middleton is huge. When you look at the splits for offensive rating with Middleton on the court versus off the court, essentially you're taking a team that, with him on the court, ranked 3rd in the NBA in offensive rating. With him off the court, below the fold, 23rd in the league in offensive rating. That, no bueno, as we say around these parts.
No bueno.
I think that's going to be a struggle to score. I think Boston's going to be able to lock them down a little bit, and Milwaukee's going to give Boston a tougher run, under 217.5. Final pick in our NBA playoff pick'em. Miami and Philadelphia get set to do battle in the second round of the playoffs. The Heat are laying 4 in game one. Total of 209. Shades of the Detroit Pistons from back in the early aughts. What are you going to go with here?
I picked the Heat to come in to win, to represent the East at the start of the season, and I'm sticking with them. And listen, they took care of the Hawks in 5. They made Trae Young look pedestrian. Their defense is just sick. 57% cover rate this season in the NBA for the Heat. 4th best team in the NBA in regard to cover rate. And I know Embiid's hands didn't look like it was bothering him much last night, right? Putting up 33 points against the Raptors. But this Heat defense, it's a whole nother animal, baby. So watch out. I like the Heat in this series, and I like the Heat -4 in the first game.
We are aligned.
Whoa.
I'm going to lay the 4 with Miami
Finally.
as well. Do not buy into whatever you saw from Philadelphia against Toronto. That was a busted-up Toronto squad. Everyone was hurt. Nick Nurse did an excellent job coaching them through those playoffs. Toronto, they got everything they possibly could out of the Raptors, and it went 6. Philadelphia is a flawed team. Doc Rivers is talking crazy about his former teams. He does not appear to be a man in control. Embiid's banged up. James Harden is like an aging running back. He has fallen off a cliff. He's averaging 19 points per game for the series. He doesn't get to the free throw line at all anymore because they don't let him get away with these ticky-tack fouls. The bench, the erratic nature. How do you go up 3-0 and find yourself game 6 in Toronto? I can understand losing game 4, and then it's a gentleman's sweep like what happened with the Warriors, but that never should have gotten to 6. Miami is coming in well coached. There's an edge. Miami is coming in better on defense. They're focused, they're disciplined, they're well rested. They're going to jump all over Philadelphia in game 1. Whether or not the Sixers make it a series remains to be seen. I do not think they make it a competitive game 1. That one's going to be a stretch. That concludes NBA Playoff Pick'em for this installment of Bet. But don't go anywhere, because we're coming right back at you with a little bit more. This segment is called Fortenbaugh versus Technology. I have to hold this iPad and simultaneously find a way to get coherent thoughts out of my brain. Good luck to me. Take your pick is the actual name of the segment. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you 2 bets.
Okay.
You let me know which of the 2 options you like the most.
Okay.
Option number 1 for you is going to be game 1 between the Celtics and the Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo par, points plus assists plus rebounds, over 50.5, or Jason Tatum, points plus assists plus rebounds, over 43.5. That was a mouthful.
It was. And I'm going to go Tatum here for all the reasons I just said just a second ago. I think Middleton not being able to play is going to be a huge hit defensively for the Bucks. Who's going to defend Tatum? They're going to give it a good old college try, but good luck with that. I mean, he's just been a complete beast. Meanwhile, for Boston, their defense, one of the best, if the not best in the NBA coming into the series. And again, I think the really big key for them is having Robert Williams healthy, ready, as I like to call it, active and attractive,
Yes.
ready to go. And he's going to contest and contend against Giannis in the paint.
Very nicely said. Complete agreement on this one as well. I'm with Tatum, with you. If I'm Boston, and I know they're not necessarily going to do this, I just throw the kitchen sink at Giannis in game 1. See what happens. There's no Chris Middleton. Robin's not there. If you throw the kitchen sink at Batman, you can turn it over to Bobby Portis. But Bobby Portis versus Tatum and Brown and Smart and everything in between that Boston's going to hit you with, waves. The biggest problem for the Bucks in this series without Middleton is what happens when Giannis comes off the court. He might miss maybe 5 or 6 minutes per game. Boston is going to own those 5 or 6 minutes each and every game. The offensive rating for the Bucks absolutely plummets when Giannis Antetokounmpo leaves the floor. He's going to have to leave the floor a little bit in this series. Boston has a rest advantage here, hosting Game 1. I think Tatum gets after it. He's been very versatile throughout the playoffs. Giannis's assists and rebounds might be up in this series, especially assists as he facilitates. I don't think he's going to score a lot of points in Game 1. Look at what Boston did against Kevin Durant. They made him look like a guy who might be getting a little bit older. No one's done that to Kevin Durant at any point in his career. Keep that in mind as we get into this series. All right, take your pick, number 2. Again, Boston and Milwaukee. Who would be most likely to take a 2-1 series lead? The Bucks at a price of plus 175 or the Celtics at a price of plus 120?
Celtics.
Celtics?
For all the reasons that I just said, and they have home court advantage, and they're one of the best NBA teams on the road, and all the reasons I just said about 30 seconds.
Nicely done. I will jump in there, and I will completely agree with you once again on this one.
Ooh.
It worried me a bit because I thought about a scenario where Boston gets Game 1, Milwaukee finds a way to get the split, and then you come back to Milwaukee and you find yourself in a situation where they would have the advantage. I just don't see Boston necessarily fall. I think it's more likely Boston goes up 2-0, then they split, or certainly go down 0-2 in this series. Again, Milwaukee looked great against the Bulls, who probably were a fringe playoff team. I know they had a good enough record to make it look like they weren't a fringe team, but they didn't really belong in the postseason with the true contenders. They were a team that couldn't beat good teams all year. Billy Donovan talked about this at the end of the season. They could not beat good teams. They could not win on the road. Boston is the antithesis of that. Boston plays great defense. They can beat you anywhere, and they play very well with elite teams. These two, be careful with this, matched up 3 times this season, but all of them happened, I believe, Christmas and prior. So there's a lot that you can't take away from that because Boston got much better in the second half of the season, and Milwaukee was dealing with injuries to both Giannis and Middleton early in the season. They weren't even in the lineup for the first game. So for those of you looking to those 3 games for analysis, you're not going to find a lot there. They were high-scoring games, though, but don't keep that in mind. We really won it under in Game 1. Take your pick, number 3. First team to score 20 points in tonight's Game 6 matchup between Minnesota and Memphis. You could play Minnesota at minus 110 or Memphis, who's the favorite, at minus 120.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the T-Wolves here. When you look at the series, they've been up in the first quarter 4 of the 5 games, and in some cases by a lot. They typically have had a strong first quarter. They're at home. They're going to come out. I believe they're going to be fired up. Again, they want to force a Game 7, and I think Towns is going to go to town.
It is a clean sweep with you and I agreeing with each other on this segment.
That scares me.
Very scary. Very scary. It means we're going to win 1 at most. The logic that you laid out, though, no matter how you think this series is played out, Minnesota has owned the first quarter, absolutely owned it, whether it's been home or road. Anita told you, they won the first quarter. They were the first to 20 points in 4 of the 5 games. The one game they weren't was the last game when they lost 20-19. They were right there with a chance to get it done, and Memphis claimed it. Some of the other games, they blew them out in the race to 20 points. I know sometimes you shouldn't just buy into what you've seen and think it's going to continue to happen, right? Just because it has happened doesn't mean it will happen. Just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it can't happen. That's the logic with the 16 seed beating a 1 seed the year Virginia did it. No one ever wanted to pick a 16, and it was understandable. It was a low percentage play, but it did end up happening. A little too much champagne, you'll catch up at some point. I believe you're trying to work through the cloud of last night to figure out that the words were correct. Grammatically, it may have been a bit messy, but the words were in fact correct.
I was following along.
I'm with you. It's if Memphis gets them tonight in the first quarter, I shudder to think how it happens late because it seems like this series is Minnesota early and a lot of Memphis.
They can't close out in the fourth quarter. That's why one of my keys to the game is why I like the T-Wolves. I feel that this could be a different game. They've got to keep the intensity in the fourth quarter.
All right,
that's
concludes.
where they've been.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's quite all right. So concludes Fortenbaugh versus Technology, also known as Take Your Pick. That brings us to sucker bets. We've had these for about a year. I've been looking to bust them open. I'm not allowed. I am a huge Tootsie Pops fan. You get the red, I get the blue.
Are these real?
They are real, but they are a bunch of mini Tootsie Pops wrapped into one. It's not one giant Tootsie Pop. Imagine trying to eat this thing. The dentist would take out back.
Wait, I have to ask you, how many licks to the center of... Remember the commercial with the owl? I'm dating myself.
I remember
I'm sorry.
I feel like if I answer that, I get in trouble in some way, shape.
But you remember the commercial?
I
How
do.
many licks to the center of a...
I was like the owl. I only gave it a little bit, and then I bit into it. I wanted the chocolate stuff in the middle. I don't have all day.
No patience, Joe.
No,
That's why. You have no patience.
Very, very well said. Very
Okay.
well said. Speaking of which, let's put a bow on this thing. Sucker bets. Basically, it's a bet where we try to warn you about a potential side you might like, but there could be trouble and danger lurking. Sucker bet for tonight, Anita Marks. What do you like?
How about the 76ers? Don't be a sucker and take them to win the series against the Heat at plus 145. I know you're looking at last night's game against the Raptors, and you're saying, well, Embiid put up 33 points, 10 rebounds. He's back. No. Guess what? Siakam socked him in the eye. So apparently, you like what I did there?
I did.
So apparently reports are that he left the arena with a patch over his eye. So now you're telling me
like a pirate.
Yeah, like a pirate. Like Pirates of the Caribbean.
The jokes are getting worse as the
show
goes on.
So Embiid's not 100%, and again, this Miami defense is just ridiculous. Night and day, different animal than the Raptors. So don't be suckered into Embiid looking good last night and thinking that they could beat the Heat in the series.
That's a Sunday one. I got you covered with something for this afternoon. Do not bet against the Baltimore Orioles. Something that even the Orioles probably don't say all that often because they have been wretched for years. But the Boston Red Sox are too big of a favorite in this game at a price of minus 130. There is value going the other way with the Baltimore Orioles. Let's start with Boston. They've lost 7 of 9. They're not very good this season, and they rank 21st in scoring. Now, there's not a whole lot to get excited about with Baltimore, but it's not as if this Boston team has been a juggernaut. They're going to send the lefty Rich Hill to the mound today. Hill's been average this season. He's got an ERA north of 4. He's like 400 years old. But perhaps more importantly, the Orioles, if there's anything they do well outside of losing, it's hit left-handed pitching. They hit lefties okay. So there's a good matchup for them at plus money. Now, on the other side, the Orioles are going to try out the righty Kyle Bradish, who's making his first career start. He was at AAA this year. He had an ERA just over 1. He's a righty. Boston has really struggled against righties this season, so there's an opportunity here. Not a lot of a scouting report on Bradish.
Over under 365 licks to get to the center of this bad boy.
I mean, you
365
pass out most likely before you got to 300. Who has 360 licks? I'd say over.
Where's the owl?
I'd say if this was a real lollipop, it would be more than 360. Do you know the size of this? It is a softball. All right, well, we're going to find out, but just not on air. That's how that day's going to end. She's Anita Marks. I'm Joe Fortenbaugh. Thank you for checking us out on Bet. 1 hour from now, daily wager bumped up. It is 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there on ESPN 2.